Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a special guest on the show, Ileana, the Star Traveler. And it's a great pleasure to have her. She's spent 60 years in this secret space program. And I'd like to just read a brief bio on Ileana, what she's been up to basically since she came back from the secret space program. And then we'll get into being able to ask some questions to Ileana in regards to some of her experiences and occupations she's done in her career and such. So here's what Ileana has been up to now, and many things. Ileana is a certified crystal healer, teacher, Reiki practitioner, shamanic practitioner, sound healer, and intuitive. In her current practice, Ileana does energy healing, Reiki, and is a psychic who helps people figure out their life journeys by looking at their life paths, what they would like to improve in their lives, achieve goals, create balance, and work on removing blockages. Ileana specializes in crystal healing, using crystal body grids, crystal chakra clearing, crystal wands, and pendulums to clear emotional and physical blockages from the chakras, as well as bringing the auric field around the human body into a state of balance. She also does Reiki and sound healing with tuning forks, as well as past life regression and soul retrieval sessions. One of Ileana's talents as a crystal practitioner is bringing healing energy to others by using crystal grids for the home in order to achieve success and good health. Ileana first started working with crystals to heal herself, and her success with this has inspired her to heal others and share her knowledge. As a crystal healer teacher, Ileana offers several online Zoom workshops, such as the Healing Crystal Grid Workshop and the Light Magic Manifestation Workshop. Also, Ileana has a YouTube channel, and she also has a book that's available on Amazon, as well as some a website, etc. And we'll post all the links to those below in the description box here. For example, I just like to mention Ileana's book. There's a book Ileana has on crystals. It can be found on Amazon, and definitely the link will be below. This book is Crystal Grids, The Art of Healing with Crystals. So great pleasure to have you on Cosmic Howling Media, Ileana, and how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, very good, thanks, very good. Perhaps we can just, I would like to read a quote, Ileana, from Penny Bradley, what she said of you, because, and if anybody's listening that hasn't heard Ileana and Penny Bradley's, they've done some great work, talks, web meetings together, and it's pretty mind-blowing stuff. So, but just to quote Penny Bradley, if I may, Penny Bradley has said about Ileana here, Penny Bradley, quote, Ileana is the best remote viewer that I know. So that's pretty cool coming from Penny Bradley. Right on, bravo, bravo, bravo. And other than that, Ileana, would you be okay maybe with going through some of your career, what the major occupations were, and perhaps even, you know, if you could touch on a little bit of your training when you began. I believe you began about 9-10 years old and started to be trained to be eventually an SSP asset.
Yeah, when I was 2 to 10, I had been abducted by reptilians, and that was an underground basis near Rostov, because I'm from Ukraine in Europe. So basically, that's how all that started, with the reptilian abductions, my autoimmune system being damaged by them because they infused me with nanite technology, and that damaged, again, my autoimmune system. And then from the ages of 10, I started having like recollections of some ET experiences, and 12 to 15, I would say I had been taken by Monarch Solutions somewhere in the Sierra Madre Mountains. And that's a little further than California. I had been living in Canada at that time. And they prepared me for basically psionic training, like getting me to psionically open up portals to travel from point A to B on the planet, on Earth. And this was in the woods. I remember there was a cabin and there was something like a hot tub in the back, and they would drown me to see how much I could hold my breath underwater, for how long I could stay conscious. And they do this often, like to sort of train me, to inoculate me to breathing more deeper and staying conscious more underwater. And it's kind of like a breakdown of the person, so they don't feel pain eventually, and they don't experience pain. So that's how they toughen you up. And then I was put in, I guess at 17, 18, I was put into the secret space programs. And I started off on Mars doing various communications on their bases. I was a communications specialist, so I got to see all their databases, all the missions, who I call them SSP assets, because some of the assets that are on Mars and in the planetary corp basis, they come from military personnel, and some are abductees, like human abductees, who have psionic abilities, and they're good for certain types of jobs. Like me, I started off with communications, because psychically I can interact with a lot of different technologies. And I was given Neurolink implants, 4 of them in my brain. So I could telepathically and psionically access the various databases on the planetary corp systems. And I also, so I did that for about 16 years. Then I was put in aeronautics, 20 some odd years, where I used the Neuralink implants to basically test out the navigational systems on the various ships that Planetary Corp does beyond the speed of light. They do crystalline engines, plasma engines, EMF drives, those types of things. So what my job was to, when they create new ships, test out the navigation system and communications to make sure that if it needs to be navigated and controlled remotely through the Neuralink implants, that the pilots could do that. But before the pilots take over the ships, like to make sure the safety is there, that the Neuralink implants connect properly to the navigation systems, communications, that the ship flies in space remotely by the mind controlling the ship and navigating it. So that's the secondary thing that I did. Plus I did the cybernetics lab stuff for about 30 years, I believe. Working in the cybernetics labs, creating biological human cyborgs, developing biological drug serums, working with genetic experiments, creating human ET hybrids, and doing genetic editing. And that's something I did in the cybernetics labs. Also helping to develop the Neuralink implants to improve the functions, building the smart suits to see how that works with nanotechnology. That was all done on Mars. I had done some work on the Mars space station platforms, just to make sure communications were working correctly, that the stations cloak, decloak, that their world engines work. And the last part was basically working for Nachtwaffen, and that's off planet, that's not on Mars. I had been trained as an assassin. So I have some assassin training with swords, knives, plasma weapons, semi-automatic weapons. So that's the training to be able to bring in assets who kind of defected from the major SSP factions, especially Nachtwaffen, and they're put in prison barge ships and punished for misdeeds and stuff. So I got to see how they were tortured and taught lessons, basically, not to defect from the programs. So, and I went to Antarctica as well. And I decoded, I was a language specialist in the beginning on the Mars basis. So I was doing linguistics. That was another job that I should mention. I was doing linguistics and translating different ET languages on the Mars basis, because they have in the bases themselves, they also have meeting rooms where they meet with ETs to do negotiations for trading. So I was kind of an attaché and translation, doing language translations between the humans and the ETs on the Mars bases. And I guess that knowledge got transferred over to my last assignment in Antarctica, decoding the various hieroglyphs and coding on the ancient technologies of the ancient builder races, the tech that got left over in the Atlantean outposts in Antarctica. So my job was to decode the ancient language, the hieroglyphs on the technology. Like they had their own form of Neurolink chairs that could read minds, that could see the future, the past. So that ancient technology was in the outpost. So I was to decode the languages, put it in the databases, catalog the advanced technologies that were left behind, and also report how many bases, outposts we found of the Atlantean stuff in Antarctica. So those were my main jobs that I did in the SSP.
Excellent, Ileana. That's it's an amazing testimony. It made me think also that these very high achievers like yourself that have done so much scientific work, worked in these very advanced labs, cybernetics, worked in the medical, with the medical pods, all that stuff, genetic works, but also utilizing, they also utilize these kind of assets like yourself as doing soldiering stuff too. And, but it makes sense, I get this feeling, it's like, it's this scientist soldier occupations, like that's I'm getting, from some of you veterans who, especially ones who have a lot of memories like yourself and others. So that's pretty cool to see, these, you've done so much science work as an SSP asset, but you've also, like I say, they've utilized you for very special missions and such, soldiering type, if you will. The kind of missions that we really are high achievers here. Say we're in a regular military here. If you do what really well, they'll offer you, some to go into covert stuff and that. I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a classed as soldier. The only type of missions that I really did where I was involved in covert work was through Nachtwaffen, the assassin stuff. But you go in quietly, you collect the person, you bag them, you tag them, you bring them to the huge barge ships that are cloaked and can move around, so they're untraceable. That's quiet work. So that's not really soldiering, that's covert ops. Mm-hmm. You go in, you do it, and you get out and nobody sees you and there's no trace of you ever. And I guess the holographic medical pods on the Mars basis, that is scientific medical stuff, because that technology is, like, I would say 100 to 300 years more advanced than what we have on Earth. It could cure diseases. These holographic medical pods are like long cylindrical tubes. It has a glass dome. You get into it, it's covered, and it has like a plasma field activated in it, and it heals different medical diseases, ailments. It could cure diseases, like I said, regrow limbs, remove scars. So basically it does regeneration and healing of the body. So those are mostly what I remember is the Mars Cybernetics labs and working on the basis. I do remember the assassin stuff. That's a little bit recent. And I honestly don't talk about it much, the assassin stuff, because it's pretty simplistic. Nachtwaffen, Central Command gives you orders. You take the orders, you look at it, you follow the orders, you remove threats, you remove defectors from the programs and tag them, bag them, bring them to the barge prison ships. They're tortured, they're questioned, interrogated, they're punished, and they're thrown into the regen tank to be healed. So the physical scars of the torture are healed, but you the mental trauma of the torture remains. So that's kind of the basic gist of assassin training. I didn't kill anybody. I retrieved defectors and I retrieved troublemakers. Didn't matter what infractions they were in. Nachtwaffen doesn't really care. The punishment is based on what you did. So that's how that worked. And I did have weapons training in Viking class, battle ready training on Mars, but I never engaged in combat missions on Mars. So kind of, I wouldn't say I'm a soldier because I'm not, but I do have warrior class training. So that's kind of what I did in the programs.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was using the word soldier a little too generally. I know what you mean, but that's like I say, that's that makes sense that they use assets, very scientific class assets, if you will, that have in a lot of cases very high psionics abilities, etc. And you know, are really packing lots of the gear required to do these kinds of be successful in sent out on missions, like what they did for some of the missions you went on and others. Whereas, yeah, a lot of us were, like myself, you know, was basically a ground pounder, so to speak. Yeah. And, you know, and that's just what, you know, but not all, I mean, but that's pretty, because you know, I continue to be very impressed with SSP veterans who are, you know, very, like, I know people don't like that word super soldier, but there is some term we could probably use because, you know, the reality is the training, those of us who have been the SSP we get is very advanced, much more advanced than we get on the earth. And, you know, and the technologies we get to utilize and the weaponry, the technologies in regards to weaponry, this exo combat suits. So, you know, it's in a way, it's quite a privilege, even though we don't really volunteer, obviously, but to be able to experience that. And but anyways, yeah, thanks for explaining that the way you did, Ileana, because I was kind of wondering about that too. But it makes sense. They'll use assets that are, you know, packing lots of gear that can get those jobs done. Absolutely. And but other than that, Ileana, I'd like to ask you also, could you do you remember when you were working as a healer and operating the Medbeds? Do you remember, and I'm presuming, you know, a lot of it was you were and others were basically taking care of injured soldiers that were coming in out of the field and stuff a lot, eh?
Yeah, I wasn't a healer. I was, the term is cybernetics technician, because you don't have healers on those bases. You have technicians. So basically somebody comes in injured off combat, right, on Mars, because there's a lot of reptilians, there's different species of insectoids and mantids that don't always deal well with the human SSP assets. Like there's combat sometimes. So they come in, the soldiers come in with blown off limbs, that kind of stuff, mental, physical trauma. So they come in a Meditech unit, which is a portable, sort of like a mini holographic pod. It floats in because it's anti-grav tech, so it floats in. And basically the Meditech unit keeps the soldier alive because the soldier is in the smart suit. So the Meditech unit keeps the soldier alive until they get into the holographic medical pod. And then what I would do is just put in the programming, regrow X amount of tissue, genetic material factor needed here, to regrow arm. Say if an arm is blown off, left arm, then you program left arm, regenerate tissue, regenerate bone, regenerate skin type, genetic profile, you input that into the holographic software of the medical pod, and you program how many hours, how many minutes you want the regeneration to last, what are the factors, you program the person, you access the person's file in the database, medical file, and it's connected to regenerating the limb. So you still have to input things in, and then you monitor the procedure. You could go off into another room And through your Neurolink implants, you're connected to the holographic medical pod, to the holographic software, and you're monitoring what the pod is doing from a distance. You could be doing something else in another room on the base, the Cybernetics labs, but you're still monitoring what the pod is doing. And when the time is up, you inspect basically what's been fixed with the pod. Regrown limb, tissue regrown, skin regrown, bones regrown, ligaments, cartilage, all of that. You check it to make sure the limb functions and the person is awake again, because they're kind of like in stasis sleep when the procedure is happening. But you make sure that the limb is regenerated, it moves, it functions as it should. The person is okay, they come out of the pod and they go back to doing whatever, their class to do and work. And then you put, you end the session of the pod, and all that goes into the database of the medical record, what was done and regrown or healed, fixed, healed. So it could be genetic editing, it could be regrowing limbs, it could be removing traumatic memories, it could cure diseases, anything is possible. It could bring people back from the dead. They've been dead 14, 20 hours. It could literally bring back the soul into the body with a plasma field, if the soul hasn't wandered off too far from the body yet. So that's kind of like what these holographic medical pods can do and the capabilities of them.
Excellent. Yeah. Cool. Also, Ileana, do you remember perhaps, approximately the kind of technology you were working with, the medical beds? Say if someone lost an arm, just say from the elbow down, approximately how long it would take to regrow, say an arm, a human arm from, say, elbow right down, and with a new, get a hand going and everything again.
So from here to here, it would be about 2 hours to regrow that.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. I thought so too. Like, that's amazing stuff, eh? And for sure, Ileana. Also, Ileana, I'd like to ask you a little bit of the human cyborgs, cybernetics work you've done in regards to cyborgs generally. I'd just like an example of what I heard Jason Rice speak of, these really wolf kind of hybrids that were sounded like really cyborgs. They were, really what we'd call a werewolf looking. It wasn't like wolf heads, certainly, but they were, standing on two legs and stuff, and the warriors, that they were utilizing these wolf hybrid types of cyborgs. Have you definitely were involved in some work on producing cyborgs, I believe?
I was creating biological human cyborgs, not the wolf-like creatures. So human cyborgs, the human biological cyborgs, it's a human body. It looks human. It acts human. It's just augmented with cybernetic technology like Neurolink implants, strength, speed. So it has nanotechnology in the body. Sometimes, because you can regrow body parts, right? Organs, stuff in the holographic medical pods. So you don't need cybernetic organs inside the human body. So that's why it's called biological human cyborg, because you're still human. Sometimes what happens is the human body 1.0, which is this human body, is augmented with the nanotech cybernetic implants in the brain, arms, legs, whatever, augment speed, augment intellect, whatever needs augmenting is augmented with the neurotech. And sometimes when the soul needs to be transferred from body 1.0 that stays in stasis, they build a cybernetics body with different human body parts and cybernetics technology. So that's more cybernetic. And they put the soul of body 1.0 into the cybernetics body 2.0. And you control that cybernetic body for however it lives, how long it lives, because it's kind of like goes on missions, does the more dirtier missions. So it's more disposable. And then the soul basically rewrites itself and goes back to body 1.0 that's in stasis, sleeping in stasis. So their original body never dies. That cybernetic biological human cyborg dies. Soul goes back into the original body. And you have clones and stuff as well that could be that could be made from the original DNA of body 1.0. And a bit of the soul gets put into the clone to operate it. And when the work is done, that part of the soul goes back into body 1.0 that's in stasis. So the wolf creatures are more like different hybrids of different ETs spliced with the Neurolink nanotechnology. And I guess you could say they're cybernized because they're part organic machinery and part living, breathing, ET spliced combinations. I'd call them abominations because some of these labs create that kind of stuff. Planetary Corp dabbled in that because we did genetic splicing and dicing and editing, creating different hybrid chimeras. We didn't create just ET human hybrid species. We created those types of chimeras and those cybernized creatures, the wolf hybrids, that were super strong and almost hard to kill. Like only a plasma cannon could take it out and nothing else. So I'm aware that Planetary Corporations does on Mars in the cybernetics labs and other bases on other planets and moons, they do that kind of experimentation, and they create zombie viruses as well that they could just unleash on the public and experiment with it. So there's a lot of horrible, dark things that are created in these labs. And oftentimes they have to send in the assassin cleanup teams to wipe out these kinds of experiments in labs when they go wrong. And so that they don't escape. So these mutants or zombies or chimeras don't escape the experimental labs. They just destroy everything in the lab. They just clean and wipe it clean. So nobody knows about these experiments. Even the higher ups sometimes don't know what happens in behind the scenes in the more classified versions of these labs and cybernetics divisions on Mars bases. It's very much compartmentalized and sometimes top secret, and one division doesn't know what the other is doing. If it's like those chimeras and other things that are dangerous. I didn't create chimeras though. I was just doing the genetic editing and genetic splicing to create ET human hybrids. That's what I was involved in. My role, I refused to develop chimeras, zombie viruses, vampires, werewolves, because they all dabbled with that in the cybernetics labs. But I think that was unethical, so I wouldn't be involved in that kind of stuff. So even when I was in the SSP, I had ethics, some ethics, where I wouldn't cross certain lines.
Absolutely, exactly. Moi aussi, me also, and many SSP assets, veterans, exactly. We still got choices, in many ways, regardless of what our environment we're in, including sometimes we might be, literally physically chained right down. Absolutely. We keep our heart and soul and strive to do the moral, try to, maintain and be a moral, maintain some morality and stuff. It's not always easy, but absolutely excellent to hear that. Also, Ileana, as far as the clones, yeah. So yeah, that's what I was thinking the other day, like just what you said. There's an essence of the soul that is put into the clone, and sort of, it's not like, a complete soul transfer into the clone necessarily. A lot of times it's kind of like the essence of it, the way you just described it. That's what I was figuring too when it comes to clones and such, eh?
Well, if you need the expertise, the knowledge of the original body 1.0, you just transfer some of the essence into the clone. But if you need a totally different soul essence in the clone, that can be done as well, not of the original person. Somebody else's soul can be put into that clone that looks like you, but that's very rare. Clones are usually used for the 1.0 body, for part of the soul to power that. And when you're done with it, then the clone dies and you're back in your own body. It really depends on what the assignments are and the job tasks and the mission parameters of how clones are used, how the human biological cyborgs are used, why they're created, what they're used for. So it depends on the purpose and the mission parameters. I know it sounds cold to use clones and cybernetic bodies and say that they're disposable, but that's kind of like why they're made in the first place. And it's really unethical. Cloning is very unethical on Earth. I'm pretty sure it's being done, but it's all hush hush. It's all covered up and classified because we don't have access to that information for the public, general public. So it's really like these cybernetics labs, they can create anything. Cybernetic, biologically, cyborg, chimeras. It's really easy for these planetary corporations to get a hold of ET genetics, ET bodies, whether alive or dead, doesn't matter, and do these kinds of genetic experiments on them and create other stronger beings for whatever purposes they need them, or to study different ET species, because it's warp drive capable technologies on these ships, so they can go anywhere they want in our solar system and beyond, even to other galaxies. So we're warp drive capable by now in these SSPs. So getting things, procuring things, studying things, experimenting on different beings, that's very easy these days for these different SSP factions to do. Planetary corpus, especially because they're into genetic manipulation, they're into the medical regeneration technologies. Those are the main things they work on in the cybernetics labs.
Cool. Hey, yeah, Ileana. Also, I'd like to ask you what you think of when you return, and perhaps you could speak a little bit on your return, how you were returned after you've done such an extensive service, 60 and back, and Penny Bradley did, I believe, 55 and back. And so there's a couple of ladies right there that I'm figuring that's quite an exceptional length of service. I did 30 and back. That's thanks to you remembering a lot more memories than I'm still remembering. But the way this all happened for me was I had enough memories in the past year that I say, I know I was in the SSP. And then thank you very much, Ileana, for helping me so much. It makes, it's helping me in many ways to see, my behaviors, my actions, through this experience on Earth as a 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old, etc. But yeah, Ileana, I was wondering, what do you think? See, I think that those who get sent back at 9, 10 years old, they must clone them to be 10 years old again, and then their soul is into that clone and they get sent back. Whereas those of us that are adult, a lot of us go in at 17, 18, like I did, like you did. And then if we actually survive through it without being having to go into another body, we're actually coming back with our original body in some states. So there is age regression, of course, done and all that. But I'm thinking that age regression for those getting sent back as 9, 10-year-olds, I think isn't the only way. They have to clone somebody. But I'd like if you don't mind commenting on that.
As far as I understand, you're only cloned, doesn't matter the age. You're only cloned if your body died and they couldn't bring it back to life. Then you're cloned and brought back through the age regression and a portion of time travel, quantum leap time travel, like returning to 0 point at whatever age through the holographic medical pods or through the portal technology, because they have jumpway gateway portal tech there as well. So you could use either the holographic medical pod or the portal system to do it through. Clones are rarely returned. You return as a clone because that only happens when your original body dies and they can't bring you back, can't revive you, can't regenerate you. The soul is gone. So then they take a DNA sample on file of your original genetics and they make a clone and return you that way. So you don't have to be 10 or 17. But that's an extreme case when a clone comes back instead of an original body regressed to whatever age you were taken at into the SSP. You rarely get taken into the SSP at 10 or 11. That's more like my lab's training and ET experiences, 9, 10, where you're trained by ETs, what happened to you with the reptilians and psionic training, what we were able to see in your memories when we did the hypnosis regression session. So I never really saw where it was clones that were regressed and regenerated back to 0 point at whatever age the person was taken. I saw their original bodies. So cloning is there as a resort if the body dies and you need to bring somebody back through age regression, and that's when a clone comes back. But it has kind of the memories. See, genetics hold kind of core memories of the person as well. It's cellular memories, so DNA holds memories. So the clone will have original memories of the soul. Might not fully act as the soul in terms of emotion. It'll learn emotion and adapt in learning emotion. So it's not perfect because it's not the original soul of the being who's passed on. It's just their memories implanted into the clone with the genetics. So it's kind of not the same person coming back because they're relearning emotion. They have to adapt to their environment and kind of regroup and kind of mimic human behavior and social interactions. So they may seem a little awkward, like something is off with them, because it's not the soul of the body coming back, it's the memories of the person who died. So it's not a perfect science because they can't bring back the soul into a clone body if their original body soul is dead from the original body and the soul has moved on. So that's how I understand how that works.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's a little weird describing that, but you have to look at the logistics of it. Like if a soul dies in a body and has left and you can't revive it, can't bring the soul back into the body, of course you're going to clone the original and it'll have memories of the soul that passed on, but it's not going to be a perfect replica because the soul is gone. So it's just thinking about it in logistics. How does that work? That's the best way I can describe it. And sometimes, like those beings that are energetic, they could do soul swapping. They could literally put their soul into somebody else's body and power it up. And you're kind of like a bystander in the same body watching somebody else power you up. Because there's beings that can do that. There's energetic beings. There's walk-ins. Sometimes somebody's really sick or a person is tired of living in a human body. So they leave the body and another soul comes in, but that's voluntary, that's with permission that's done. So soul is such a big term in how that works, and it's energetics as well. So it's energy. So a soul can make a decision. Like if a person dies in the SSP and the soul leaves the body, that soul can choose to hop into another body as a walk-in if it wants. If it finds that kind of a person who wants to do that, the soul can do that. If it doesn't want to go through reincarnation or, if it wants to continue experiencing a physical embodiment, it could walk into another body and continue living as long as the soul makes an agreement with somebody else who wants to leave a human body. So there's so many variations on this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. No, good stuff, Ileana, because it's ongoing. We're talking some, quite high science here, obviously. And so it's good that it's even getting talked about now more and more. And I think, we can continue to unpack it, you know, step by step, as more and more people add in their experiences and their knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really cool. I was just wondering, yeah, right. I see you mean. Most assets are, yeah, actually start their career in the SSP as, you know, a young adult at 17, 18. There are cases where, like, say, Tony Rodriguez, basically, you know, he was like put in, I think, 9 or 10 years old. Like a lot of us train at that age, like I did and you did, you know, we're sent for training, but we don't actually, you know, that's just some training before we're actually inducted into as an SSP asset. So yeah, I think that's what it sounds, that seems to make sense. Most SSP veterans are begin service as sort of a young adult, if you will. From I'm feeling that more after hearing you, you know, 17, 18, whatever it might be.
Yeah, yes. Mostly, like, there are training schools for psionics for those that are 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Sometimes they go in, I call it space school. I guess they get training, psionics training, whether by human factions, and that's my labs more so than SSP. That's kind of the precursor to the SSP training that you go into to prepare you to go off planet and to visit different planetary environments, learn about different ET species. So there are schools like that, both on Earth in the bases and off-world on the space stations and different ships. So sometimes kids are taken into that training, but it's rare. And the best example I could think of is a movie called Ender's Game, where he was taken to Earth, was in trouble. They were warring with an ET species, so he was trained on how to pilot ships, on how to take battle fleets into fights with these ETs and find their weaknesses. And so he went to battle school off planet on the space station around Earth. And this is all classified. So Ender's Game is, and he had, you know, very high IQ and abilities to interact with technology and just, he was a tactician. His mind was very tactical, but he lacked physical strength. So he was trained as a warrior as well. So that's the best movie I can think of, Ender's Game, where that's kind of my lab stuff, training kids, teenagers for the SSP stuff that comes later. Yeah, I was put in the SSP when I was 17, 18, and just my mind was always based on wanting to learn things. Like the Neurolink implants allow you to download and upload information and learn information quickly to do jobs. So it doesn't take weeks or months to train you to do a job. You just get the information as a download in the Neurolink implants and you do the job. Your mind is set up for that work already. You have the training psychically given to you through the implants, and you go and do that. So the training is fairly easy to train somebody. You just give them information and they go and work either on their own or in teams on the bases. So it cuts back on training time. So you can train somebody who's 17, 18 to be disciplined to do the job, because these are military research bases. They're not a vacation that you do. Even I was always in high school, always a quiet kid who did their homework, who followed the rules. I was not a rebel. I was not a troublemaker. So for me to work in the SSP was easy because I liked organization. I like protocols. I like medical experiments. I like tech. So it was just fascinating to do that work. And I guess I didn't give him trouble on Mars because the work was interesting. Like, as long as I'm kept engaged and the work is interesting, then I'm well behaved.
Yeah, exactly. Right on, Ileana. Exactly. I know you mean, like the kind of environments, work, occupations that many have done and do in the SSP are, yeah, it's just, you know, we got access to, you know, all this really excellent technology that continues to be suppressed on the surface. So in a sense, it's a privilege, and I could see why a lot of us will just, well, we're sort of in it anyways. And so you're going to focus on what you need to do for many reasons. Try to stay out of trouble. Absolutely. Because, you know, I'm starting to sense, yeah, I got in some trouble when I was in the SSP, but, you know, they'll, like you say, they'll correct you and, okay, you're back at it again, eh? And stuff. You know, so it's, I think it's going to be great when it opens up for everybody. And, you know, this is our, you know, the space program, you know, the real space program is because it's so advanced, like you say, like, yeah, I mean, I don't remember interstellar capability when I worked in the SSP, or remember even hearing about it. But yeah, I'm almost positive too that, yeah, it's so advanced that we're talking interstellar travel capability at the highest levels of these these secret space programs. When you get to the, you know, the juiciest of it, eh? Which is, you know, that's pretty mind blowing, eh? Intergalactic, interstellar travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you, in your hypnosis session, you were taking care of the docking ports and the space. You were just doing maintenance in the docking ports on the ships that come in, just to make sure everything is running smoothly. And then you remembered watching ships come and go, land and take off. So, of course, you saw the interstellar capabilities of that on Mars and the moon, and you're 30 and back, because that was part of your work that you did. So, you know, you saw ships coming and going. So that's kind of like corroboration that it's interstellar by now, that they have warp drive capable ships and anti-grav tech. That was in your memories. That's in my memories. Flying the spaceships remotely with the Neurolink implants to test them out, the new ships, the hyperdrive, warp drive capable ships. So it's really, the technology is there. It's just not being disclosed to us at this time yet. So
Oh,
it's
cool. Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry.
Like they now have Space Force as everything to do with space. And it's kind of like, I guess it's another corporation that will eventually probably disclose that we do have these SSP programs and what they're all about down the road. I don't know when, but I think Space Force is kind of like the bridge gap, the missing gap to disclose that kind of info eventually, that they have all this space stuff. And that's kind of like the foundation has always been there, the space stuff, since the 1950s, the space stations. They were in orbit already. Werner von Braun contributed to that. It was the beginnings of the US SSP. So it's just a matter of how do you disclose the groundwork that's already been done, what's up in space, what exists. How do you get that out? So I think Space Force is the building blocks that will unify all of that stuff and disclose it at some point. That's they take care of the domain of space. That's why it's called Space Force, and it's the United States. So because they were one of the first to develop their own SSPs after the Germans in space. So, you know, it began in the 1940s, 50s, and onwards, and they have a lot of Mars bases. It's US SSP, so I wouldn't be surprised if Space Force did the delivery of disclosure. When I don't know, but eventually it has to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it looks like you say, yeah, I don't remember it, but yeah, like you say, it makes sense that I probably would have known that when I was certainly working on the Mars bases, on the ports, the docking ports, that there's, you know, some of these ships are actually interstellar capability. It's like, but these cellular memories we all have. Like, for example, when I first heard William Tompkins speaking. It's like, it's just, you know, it's like breathing oxygen. Yeah, yeah. You know, like somehow I know he's telling the truth and it's resonating, and, you know, and same with many SSP veterans like yourself, etc. Like, and William Tompkins, of course, said, you know, a completely brilliant individual. And he said, yeah, he, of course, designed spacecraft carriers, for example, among many other things he did, and that were eventually built, he figures, by, you know, into the late 70s into the 80s. He's the modern day fleet, really, if you will, or we're talking 40 some years ago, they were already basically getting built, these spacecraft carriers and such, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, so, you know, ongoing from there. So it's these cellular memories that if we can tap into, even if we don't right away remember in such a very frontal lobe, you know, profound, acute way, it's pretty, we can rely on it a lot, that it's, you know, as far as discernment and stuff. We're not always going to be correct, I'm saying, but so that's pretty cool. I resonate so much with so many of the veterans, and it's like breathing oxygen or something. It's like, wow, right on, you know, and it's helping me remember things, etc.
Well, yeah, it's mind blowing to me, because the reason why I went into learning to be a Native American shaman and studying shamanism is to recover these memories, to learn past life regression. That's one of the key things that actually attracted me to be a shaman, to become a shaman, to get back my own memories, because I had bits and pieces coming in, but it was not organized, and the hypnosis helped to organize all the categories, so I could later make presentations on how this felt like and looked like to me. In these presentations, I find images on the internet of what these things look like, you know, approximations of them. And I posted these presentations on YouTube and other social media, and I shared it with people. And now it kind of has become a format for presenting these things. I was kind of the first to start doing these presentations. And can I share that with you?
Oh, that'd be great, Ileana. Yeah, excellent.
So it's kind of like, this is one of the first things I put out. At first, I had memories that I had a 16 back, but then as things started coming in through the hypnosis, it turned out 60 years in back. So it's kind of remember wearing this kind of like a smart suit. And I remember these futuristic looking cities on Mars bases and stuff covered by the domes, because all the bases are covered by protective domes and electromagnetic shielding. So those were some of the things that I remembered on Mars. And quotes like, taking your first steps to the far-reaching stars. These are new journeys going beyond known limits. So those kinds of quotes that I had been taught in the SSP in the 16 back. So, and this is the linguistics specialist 14 years that I did on Mars. And sometimes I would be genetically altered to be different humanoid ET species. So I would have kind of like blue, pale blue or gray skin, blue hair with stripes on my face. And I would participate in ET human negotiations on the Mars bases and translate the languages. When we made contact with new ET species, I would be the first in there to meet them. And I looked like them because they didn't want a human coming in. So I had to look like them to do that and translate the language and learn their culture. So this is in the presentation. That's the first memories I have doing that on Mars, the bases, planetary court bases. And being an information specialist, that was 16 years. And I sort of talked about that, communications and stuff. And I described that, what I did, what kind of clearances I had, what the facilities look like on Mars. You wear a white smart suit or a blue smart suit form, a uniform, because the smart suit can take on any type of clothing or form that you want it to. and it's nanotech. It's the thin version of the smart suit that you wear as your uniform on the base. So again, it was information specialist 16 years. So, and I remember wearing the white smart suit and working with the holographic technology, and there being like trees that are sort of in these pods around me on the base, because they want you to feel like you still have an Earth-like environment even on the bases, and same on the moon. So they have biodomes and atriums, terrariums with forests and oceans and lakes and parks where you can go when you're off duty, and you can be in nature in these biodomes. And working with the holographic technology. So I felt like I had to put it in a presentation style of what I did in the different jobs. A lot of it was the informational specialist in communications on the Mars bases. And there are children on the bases, because some of the assets have children that are born there. And certain areas the children can't go in certain areas they can. So this is kind of like the children studying history of Mars and what happened there, like the SSP stuff, how the bases were being built out. So it's like a interactive learning school, holographic learning for the kids. This is the aeronautical specialist, 20 years. Showing some of the ships and the models of the ships in cybernetics labs. And I just had to write about it. I had to get it all out there, to share that with people, because they have the biodome connections, and they have these modular bases connected by tunnel systems on the moon. That's lunar space operations. So I kind of had to get that out there, and what some of these solar warden ships look like, because we had in Planetary Corp, we did have solar warden ships that would land for repair on the Mars bases sometimes. And Planetary Corporations has a decent relationship with solar warden, because it protects our galaxy, protects our solar system, solar warden. So kind of like different ships of solar warden craft. And this is on the moon. This is what lunar space operations looks like. It's huge modular facilities connected together. And it has the biodome kind of environments where it has forests, trees. So it's very interesting. It's kind of like a gray-white environment that's connected by different corridors and tunnels together. So that's what lunar space operations looks like. This is, again, aeronautical specialists, what some of these aeronautical labs look like to me. And this is the Cybernetics lab, 10 years that I remember in one of these labs, and building the biological human cyborgs. The woman is in the stasis pod. It's how this lab looks like. So, and I remember some of these Neurolink chairs and the holographic technology visor that attaches to it to work on your memories, to create new memories if needed, to heal neurological disorders of the brain, and the beginning stages of these basic holographic medical pods, the early versions of them. And this is the assassin training, like the battle ready assassin training that you get in kind of the uniforms that you wear. So Viking class battle ready training to be an assassin, to have the training. So I remember doing that and being trained in that type of work. So that's one of my early presentations that I did of those types of things. I wanted to share that with the audience so people can understand, like, since I'm talking, like, these are notes from my hypnosis sessions in these presentations. So I just took notes, and this is kind of my first timeline, an attempt at a timeline of what I did with planetary corporations, what I did with Nachtwaffen, and to sort of put it all in context, the early version of that. And I guess I used images from the internet of likeness images to describe what all of this looked like to me, because you don't come back with video, audio, or journals of what you did in the SSP. You're not allowed to bring that back. The only thing they bring back is you when your age regress, and they mind wipe you, so you're not supposed to remember anything. But as you get older, you start to remember things, because mind wipe and blank slating is not a perfect technology, because we have cellular memory and it resurfaces. It can be totally overwritten. So this is where these presentations originally came from, and the self-hypnosis that I did. And I kind of put it in these presentations because I'm not going to post my hypnosis notes. It's kind of like simplified, like notes, little notes in these presentations. It's a better style of presenting it, I think.
Oh yeah, excellent work, Ileana. Very nice. Yeah, I definitely look forward to going through that presentation much closer as well. All those, very nice work on the visuals, the whole bit. I was gonna, Ileana, I was wondering if you could maybe comment a little on the different methods of training the people to become SSP assets. Perhaps even the timeline. Like I'm thinking some of the, like say Penny, for example, because she started training, I think, 1960 or something, like quite a long time ago, right? Or quite, well, time is inelastic, it's expandable and contractible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes to, I guess it's easy to see that, yeah, the earlier methods were more raw and rough and dangerous and harmful, perhaps, like, what I mean? I mean, it has gotten down, there's no doubt it's gotten down to a more and more of an exact science over the years, and depending who trained us, right? Like I was trained with the reptilians, right? For some reason I feel grateful that that's how it worked out. I can give you an example of being trained with the reptilians between 9 and 12. That's thanks to you remembering a lot more than what I still remember. But I certainly gravitate with, my mentor. When you spoke of my main trainer, he's like my reptilian father, if you will, But anyways, I just wanted to say, training with them, I see the way I am. Like, if you get to that level where you're engaged in an offense of some sort, if you're, defending yourself, or you're in a street fight as a younger man, or, that kind of stuff, it's like I could see it's full on. Like, forget about emotions, feelings, this is life or death or whatever. And, this is, I could see it. I mean, you don't have to be trained by the reptilians for that, but the reptilians have an effect on us, that's for sure, and because they can be, I guess, well, I don't want to speak negatively about anybody, but that, just cold and callous and so they train, I think they train some of us humans to be able to open up to that. If we're engaged in battle, we can become the monster in the minute or whatever it takes, and that's it is what it is. So I just want to mention that, depending, we've all been trained by various groups, depending who trained us and what period, the technologies,
Yeah, I mean, it's never really the same because the time periods are different. Like Penny is a lot older than me, so she comes from a different generation, and she's had microchips in her brain. I've had Neurolink implants, so the names are different, the wording is different. She was not in Planetary Corp, she was in Nachtwaffen, and I think Mars Defense Force, MDF. So different groups, but similar descriptions of space and vessels, and there's common links. She remembers destroying one of the cybernetic labs facilities on Mars and talking about biological human cyborgs. She was one of the first to discuss that. And then a year and a half later, I came out with that. And she's like, oh, look, she shared one of my interview descriptions on that stuff. Then we connected and did interviews about it, and we found a lot of commonalities how the Cyberlink stuff works, and implants and cyborgs. So she was the second person to corroborate what I had been saying, because she had those memories of destroying that type of facility and seeing what was inside it. Because it had been raided and it destabilized. So, bits and pieces of information coming in and disclosing that, and us putting the puzzle pieces together. I never had very harsh training. I was never really exposed to working so much with ETs when I was young, except the abduction stuff. There were some Nordics and some reptilian insectoid hybrids that worked with us on the Mars basis. But I remember meeting human ETs, very humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, your typical stuff. They might have different skin color, height, but they're still very much acceptable as humanoid. So you don't have so much of a shock factor. You're not like specially trying to work with them. You just recognize that they're there, and they're there to help work with you on whatever projects you have. I mean, I still have contact psychically with a being named Zagor, who's a reptilian insectoid hybrid. He's about 14, 16 feet tall, wears a Cybernetics smart suit. And he helped me with the genetic stuff in the Cybernetics labs on Mars. And I remember doing work with him in Nachtwaffen. So, and then he was assigned to the Mars stuff and back to Nachtwaffen. So he's still in communication with me sometimes. I don't know, he's not a bad being. He's not super good and not super bad, but somewhere in the middle. And he was one of my trainers on Mars. He never hurt me. He tried to protect me. So different training. I had Neurolink implants. I never had microchips in my brain. Different types of work. I'm not a grunt. I'm not a soldier. Penny Bradley was a pilot and sort of like a soldier. I didn't really pilot ships except the remote work, with the Neuralink implant testing. So, but again, we talk about Mars. We talk about the biodomes, the secret Mars bases. Penny has seen that. I've seen that. She's seen the Cybernetics labs. I've seen the Cybernetics labs. So there's many connections. And I'd say my training is not like Penny's, because we did different things, but there's some similarities in the testimony. So what is actually there in the infrastructures of these SSP groups out in space now. And contrary to popular beliefs, none of these SSP bases or space stations or facilities have been deactivated and removed. They're very much still there. So whoever's saying that the Alliance has dismantled all of this, not true. All the infrastructure is still there. The facilities are all still there, operating in the shadows as they've always done. So everything is still the same. Like, I don't listen to things like some say the children have been saved, we've been liberated, the trafficking has stopped. I don't see the evidence of that behind the scenes. I don't see it on the surface. So there's no way of qualifying that the children have been saved. The trafficking has stopped. We're still seeing chaos and manipulation on the surface of the planet. So these things, there's no physical evidence of children being saved, dumb bases being deactivated, these SSP off-world civilizations and the SSP being deactivated. I don't see the evidence of that. Now, if I don't see physical evidence, there's no proof to corroborate what people are saying about that. So I'm like, until all that stuff is out in public and declassified, maybe I'll take it with a grain of truth, but I don't trust it 100% in what I hear about these wild claims of children being saved and dumb spaces being destroyed. I don't see the evidence. So where is it?
Oh, absolutely. That's some huge stuff, Ileana. Absolutely. And I appreciate you speaking of that, because I know you're very, you're quite skilled in psionics, etc. Abilities. So that's very interesting hearing that. You're that, like, the thing is, what I can see, because I like making, predictions of the future, and it's not set in stone, the future either, as far as I see it. It's a lot of things going on, but I can see where, yeah, we're gonna whatever. Yeah, this is, like you say, eventually, hopefully, more and more actual proof of any of this stuff will be shown to everybody on the Earth's surface. And I certainly see a bright future for our civilization and this solar system, all the groups in the solar system, and the galaxy, the whole galaxy for that matter. But basically, definitely, I see not long from now where we can start to communicate with our brothers and sisters on Mars, because there's millions and millions of humans. Many have been born there, but of course, there's always been those of us taken from the surface here and used as SSP assets. So I can see that's what I see for sure. And that's great, man. I'd love to connect with our people off planet. That's, stuff like, maybe they'll want us, some of the some bands on the Earth's surface go play there, stuff like that. There's all kinds of groovy stuff. I see a very bright future, but yeah, disclosure really hasn't happened yet. And at the same time, I thanks any SSP veterans like yourself that actually a lot of disclosure is happening, but very little people I guess, have heard it. And certainly, our state type medias aren't covering any of this, blah, 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 blah. But very exciting times, Ileana. And yeah, I just look forward to us being able to become a completely spacefaring civilization again, which I'm confident we will. And like I say, open up the real space program, the one you were in and I was in and many of us were in, to everybody. Make it much more transparent and much more legal, of course, including, like you say, it looks like we got work to do on some of these illegal activities going on in the labs and stuff, on and on and on. But excellent, Ileana. Yeah, that's good stuff. There's so many groups involved and so many levels, and it's on and on. About the secret space programs. Yeah, I'm figuring. Yeah, the Germans, the Americans have probably the two most powerful, generally speaking, and then but there's other, like Russia's got to have a powerful one as well.
Yeah,
and
Russia,
Italy, China, yeah,
Italy, yeah. There's a lot of
Italy,
Canada,
France, England.
England. They're all involved. It's more a multicultural thing now with planetary corporations, because they speak English, they speak many different languages, and I was able to understand that because I had a Neurolink implant in my brain, the different languages. They wore different uniforms as well, like the base that you'd been on. Mm-hmm. Yours was Canada, red stripes with white on your uniform. Me, I didn't really, on Planetary Corp, I didn't really wear a uniform that signified which country I was at. I wore the smart suits, but some of these programs, you actually wear a jumpsuit with your stripes, which country you're from. And that's more of Nachtwaffen Central Command in their bases on the dark side of the moon. They identified you, which country you were from. And you had kind of linguistic devices in your ear that would translate for you. I had a Neuralink implant. So it's a little bit different for different groups. That's so true. So I think we've covered a lot, right? And packed a lot of good info in this interview.
Yeah, excellent, Ileana. And so yeah, the thing is, yeah, exactly. It's been including, like you just mentioned, a country like Canada. Yeah, we've been involved from the beginning too, just like since the Americans, because it's really, this is America too, in a sense. And so we've had, they've been recruiting the Canadian people into this secret space program for a long time as well, and the Russians and the Chinese and the Europeans, etc. And India and Pakistan, they've got to be, because I think what happened, just to make a long story short, is eventually they had to offer a seat at the table to some of these very powerful countries like India, etc., and say, okay, so China or whatever. But I guess what is it safe to say that basically Germany were kind of the first nation on the surface that really started to get that dance going, and then I think that had a lot to do with why Mussolini sort of got involved with Hitler, and because then they could start to get the Italian space program advancing more, et cetera, on and on. It's quite a story, and there's so many aspects to it, and there's so many groups involved, et cetera. So potentially, yeah, we can really build something special for everybody who eventually, and have excellent opportunities for everybody who wants to really fly, literally, cosmically speaking.
Well, I mean, Planetary Corp and certain groups of Nachtwaffen, like Central Command, they're trying to get different countries like to be on the basis and work together as nationalities to kind of have cohesive teams. It doesn't really matter what nationality you're from, as long as you can work together as teams, and that's your team. So it's more, it's not any more isolated in just one country, one SSP program. It's more multicultural, multinational now, off planet, and to be more inclusive of different countries, like you said, because on Planetary Corp, on the Mars bases, it wasn't just US or Germans. I heard many different languages, and my Neurolink implants translated that into English for me to understand, because I'm primarily English speaking. So, it's about inclusivity. It's about, doesn't matter what your skin color is, what your race is. You're humans, you work together. You're SSP assets, you work together. You're here. This is what group you belong to. You've been kind of paired up with certain people that you are compatible to work with. This is your team. Work together, make it happen. Build trust, build community, build cohesiveness. That's important. That's part of how military are trained on Earth as well. That's your team. You don't leave anybody behind from your team. Your combat team, whatever, science teams, research, whatever. You work as a unit. You learn to put the differences aside and work as a unit.
Absolutely, Ileana. Excellent. I think this is a great civilization. The Earth's surface, home of rock and roll, which I think of as not just a humanoid / reptoid cocktail served up on all its types, its insanities, its brilliance, its hate, its love, everything, stuff like that. And apparently, and this is resonating with me, our brewmeisters here make like this kind of beer that, very popular beer. They love our beer too. So we got a lot to offer, and absolutely, man. We're a very powerful civilization, and we're going to break free from the more criminal elements now and really start to, so everybody can really fly higher and higher, and stuff.
That's the idea, I think. So thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ileana. And I'll send you a link to this web meeting. Thanks a lot, Ileana. I appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully see you again soon and speak to you again soon. I'll certainly keep in touch with you, fine lady.
Yes, you too. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Ileana. Best wishes, eh?
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.